That Christmas tree in your living room, it's a symbol of human sacrifice. No, seriously, before tinsel and ornaments, these trees marked where bodies hung as offerings to ancient gods. What you think is a cheerful holiday tradition has one of the darkest origins in human history, and nobody talks about it. Let's go back 2,000 years to the frozen forests of Germania and Scandinavia. The ancient Germanic tribes and Norse people didn't see evergreen trees the way we do. To them, these trees that stayed green through winter's death weren't just pretty, they were proof of divine power. At the center of Norse cosmology stood Yggdrasil, the World Tree. This wasn't just any tree, it was the tree that held the entire universe together. Its roots reached into the underworld, its trunk supported our world, and its branches touched the realm of the gods. Every evergreen tree was seen as a small reflection of Yggdrasil's eternal power. And here's where it gets dark. According to the Havamal, Odin, the chief of the Norse gods, hung himself from Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights, pierced by his own spear as a sacrifice to himself. This self-sacrifice gave him knowledge of the runes and cosmic wisdom, and the Norse people, they copied their god. The ancient Germanic tribes practiced human sacrifice, and trees, especially evergreens, were central to these rituals. Criminals, prisoners of war, and sometimes volunteers were hanged from sacred trees as offerings to Odin. These weren't random acts of violence, these were deeply religious ceremonies meant to honor the gods and ensure prosperity. We're not making this up. Archaeologists have found bog bodies throughout northern Europe, preserved corpses from the Iron Age and Viking period. Many show signs of ritual hanging. The Tolland man, discovered in Denmark, still had the rope around his neck after 2,400 years. These were Odin's sacrifices, hung from sacred groves. The Germanic tribes had sacred groves, specific areas of forest where no one dared to chop wood or hunt. These groves contained the most powerful trees, the ones closest to the gods. Roman historian Tacitus wrote about these groves in 98 AD, describing them as places of terrible rituals and divine presence. The winter solstice was the most important time for these tree rituals. On the longest, darkest night of the year, when the sun seemed to be dying, the evergreen trees proved that life could endure. The solstice ceremonies often involved sacrifice to ensure the sun would return and winter would end. During the winter solstice period, the Norse believed Odin led the wild hunt, a ghostly procession of the dead riding through the sky. Anyone caught outside could be swept up and carried away. People would hang offerings on evergreen trees to appease the hunt and protect their homes. These traditions weren't isolated to Scandinavia. As Germanic tribes migrated and settled across Europe from the British Isles to Eastern Europe, they brought their tree worship with them. Each region developed its own variations, but the core belief remained: evergreen trees were sacred and connected to the divine. When Roman legions pushed into Germania, they were horrified by what they found. Roman writers described sacred groves decorated with the armor of defeated enemies and worse, human remains. The historian Tacitus mentioned that the Germanic priestess Veleda used sacred groves for prophecy and ritual. To Romans, this was barbarism. To the Germanic tribes, it was their religion. By the 8th century AD, Christian missionaries were pushing deep into pagan territories, determined to convert the Germanic tribes. But they faced a problem. These people had worshipped trees for thousands of years. You couldn't just tell them to stop. The missionaries needed a different strategy. Enter Saint Boniface. According to legend, around 723 AD, Boniface confronted the pagans at Thor's Oak, a sacred tree in Geismar. He grabbed an axe and started chopping. The pagans waited for Thor to strike him down with lightning, but nothing happened. When the tree fell, Boniface claimed it proved the Christian God was more powerful. But here's the thing. Boniface didn't just destroy the tree and leave. According to the legend, he used the wood to build a chapel. This was the Christian strategy across Europe. Don't eliminate the pagan traditions, transform them. If people loved their sacred trees, give them a Christian reason to keep loving trees. By the Middle Ages, a new tradition emerged, the Paradise Tree. On December 24th, Christian communities would perform mystery plays about Adam and Eve. They'd bring an evergreen tree on stage and decorate it with apples to represent the tree of knowledge. This was supposed to symbolize the fall of man and the coming redemption through Christ. But the people knew what they were really doing. The tree wasn't just about Adam and Eve. It was still the World Tree, still the symbol of eternal life through winter's darkness. The church gave it a Christian meaning, but the pagan roots ran deep. Literally, the paradise tree became the direct ancestor of the modern Christmas tree. By the 1500s, the tradition of bringing evergreen trees indoors during winter was firmly established in Germany. The Tannenbaum, or fir tree, became a centerpiece of Christmas celebrations. People would decorate them with candles, fruits and nuts, but they rarely thought about why evergreens specifically. It was just tradition. Another legend claims Martin Luther invented the Christmas tree. The story goes that he was walking through a forest one winter night and was struck by how beautiful the stars looked shining through the evergreen branches. He brought a tree home and decorated it with candles to recreate the effect for his children. True or not, this story helped popularize the tradition. The Christmas tree went global, thanks to Queen Victoria. In 1848, a drawing of the royal family celebrating around their Christmas tree was published in newspapers. Prince Albert, who was German, had brought the tradition to Britain. When people saw the Queen doing it, everyone wanted a Christmas tree. Within a decade, the tradition exploded across the English-speaking world. German immigrants had already brought Christmas trees to America, but they were seen as a foreign oddity. After the Victoria illustration, that changed overnight. By the 1870s, American department stores were selling ornaments. By 1900, 1 in 5 American families had a Christmas tree. A tradition born from pagan sacrifice had become wholesome family entertainment. The 20th century commercialized everything. Christmas tree farms replaced forest harvesting. Artificial trees were invented. The industry exploded. By the 1950s, the Christmas tree was as American as apple pie. Nobody was thinking about Odin or human sacrifice anymore. It was just Christmas. The Rockefeller Center Christmas tree became the ultimate symbol of modern Christmas. First erected in 1931 by workers during the Great Depression, it's now an 80-foot Norwegian spruce covered in 50,000 LED lights. Millions visit it each year. It's a far cry from a sacred grove in ancient Germania, but the symbolism, life persisting through darkness, remains the same. Here's what's fascinating. Even though Christianity tried to overwrite the pagan meanings, the core symbolism never really changed. An evergreen tree in the dead of winter still represents the same thing it did to the ancient Norse life, enduring through death, light persisting through darkness, hope that spring will return. We've forgotten the gods, but we've kept their symbols. Odin, Thor, and the World Tree don't get prayers anymore. But every December, we bring a tree into our homes and celebrate it. We've forgotten why, but we feel like we should. That's the power of truly ancient traditions. They outlive the religions that birthed them. And it's not just the tree. Holly and ivy were sacred to the Druids. Mistletoe was used in Celtic rituals. The Yule log comes from Norse fire ceremonies. Even the date December 25th was chosen to align with the Roman festival of Sol Invictus and Germanic winter solstice celebrations. Christmas is a pagan festival wearing a Christian costume. In recent decades, there's been a revival of interest in these old traditions. Modern pagans and practitioners of Norse paganism celebrate Yule, the winter solstice, with many of the original traditions. For them, decorating an evergreen tree isn't about Christmas. It's about reconnecting with the ancient practices of their ancestors. The tree has come full circle. Historians and anthropologists have known about these connections for over a century. The problem is that most people don't read academic papers on comparative religion. We inherit traditions without inheriting their histories. We do things because our parents did them, not because we understand why. The Christmas tree is the perfect example. What we call tradition is actually layers of history stacked on top of each other. The Germanic tribes added their practices to older Indo-European tree worship. Christians added their layer. Victorians added theirs. Each generation thinks they're practicing an ancient, unchanged tradition, but really they're adding another layer to something far older than they imagine. Let's track the journey. Sacred tree in Germanic forest, site of sacrifice to Odin. Same tree type becomes Christian paradise tree in medieval mystery plays. Germans bring it indoors as Tannenbaum. Queen Victoria makes it fashionable. Americans commercialize it, and now it's in millions of homes worldwide, most people having no idea about. So why does this matter? Because understanding where our traditions come from helps us understand ourselves. The Christmas tree isn't just a decoration. It's a 2,000-year-old symbol that our ancestors were willing to die for. It represented their deepest beliefs about life, death, and the divine. That meaning doesn't disappear just because we forgot it. Today, the Christmas tree means whatever we want it to mean. For Christians, it can symbolize everlasting life through Christ. For secular families, it represents tradition and togetherness. For pagans, it reconnects them to ancient practices. The tree is big enough, literally and metaphorically, to hold all these meanings at once. Maybe the reason the evergreen tree works for so many different belief systems is that its symbolism is rooted in observable reality. When everything else is dead or dormant, the evergreen stays alive. You don't need complex theology to understand that. It's a natural symbol that speaks to something deep in human psychology: hope, persistence, survival. Archaeologists are still making discoveries about ancient Germanic and Norse practices. Every bog body found, every excavated sacred site, adds new pieces to the puzzle. We're still learning about what these trees meant to ancient peoples. The story isn't finished. It's still being written as we uncover more of the past. The Christmas tree has been adapted by cultures worldwide, often mixing with local traditions. In Japan, Christmas trees are popular despite only 1% of the population being Christian. In Australia, they celebrate Christmas in summer heat. Each culture adds its own layer of meaning, proving that powerful symbols can transcend their origins and speak to universal human needs. Today, we face new questions about the Christmas tree. Real or artificial? The environmental debate reflects modern values. Real trees are biodegradable, but require land and water. Artificial trees last longer, but are made from petroleum products. Even this seemingly simple tradition now carries the weight of our contemporary concerns about climate and sustainability. Most families never discuss any of this. Kids grow up decorating trees without knowing they're participating in one of humanity's oldest continuous traditions. Maybe that's fine. You don't need to know the history to enjoy the present. But there's something powerful about knowing that when you decorate a tree, you're doing something humans have done for millennia. Yes, the origins are dark. Human sacrifice isn't something we like to think about while sipping hot cocoa, but sanitizing history doesn't make it go away. The ancient Germanic tribes lived in a harsh world where survival was never guaranteed. Their rituals, as brutal as they seem to us, were their way of trying to control the uncontrollable. We can acknowledge that without condoning it. What's remarkable is how meanings transform. A tree that once held human sacrifices became a symbol of paradise. A pagan ritual became a Christian celebration. A religious tradition became a secular cultural touchstone. The same object, across centuries, has meant completely different things to completely different people. That's the power of symbols. They evolve with us. The next time you're decorating your Christmas tree, take a moment. You're participating in something that connects you to ancestors you'll never know. They looked at evergreen trees and saw the divine. They saw hope in darkness. They saw life persisting when everything seemed dead. Whatever you see in your tree, you're part of that same chain reaching back into the mists of prehistory. So yes, your Christmas tree has dark origins, but it also has beautiful ones. It survived pagan priests and Christian missionaries, Roman emperors and Viking warriors, medieval mystery plays and Victorian commercialization. It's outlasted empires and religions, and it's still here, still glowing in windows every December, still reminding us that even in the darkest times, life endures. That's a tradition worth keeping, no matter where it came from. Like and subscribe for more hidden histories of everyday traditions. What other Christmas customs have dark origins? Let me know in the comments.